Yes, the day is finally here. Thank you guys so much for joining us on a very special Saturday episode with my good friend Steve Nobel here. How many of you guys have ever found yourself asking, what is my soul purpose? If that is you, raise your hand. And then you sit there and you're waiting for the answer kind of like this. Yeah, I'm waiting for it. If that's you, get your hand up in the air. Let's get some hands up around here. How many of you guys out there have ever looked outside of yourself to find your soul purpose? Maybe you have scheduled a session with somebody like Steve or like myself, and you've asked, what is my soul purpose? Now, you guys, you better start getting your hands up, because I know a lot of you have come to me for Akashic Record sessions and asked that question before. So that is definitely something that we've all been searching for. And one more question. How many of you guys are just here because you love Steve Nobel as much as I do? And he's transformed your life as much as he has transformed mine. So go ahead, let's get our hands up for Steve Nobel in the house. My mama just came in. She's in the house over here. She's raising up her hand.
Right, okay.
I am so excited to bring back someone who has not only transformed and created space for so much growth in my own life, but has become somebody that I really consider my friend. And I just feel very, very honored for Steve to be here with us today. Steve, maybe by the next time we hang out, I won't be such a fangirl. Oh, man, I won't be such
I'm
a group.
fan of you.
Thank you so much. But I'm really, really happy that you've taken time to come and hang out with us today, because guys, Steve and I were just catching up before I hit go on this broadcast, and there's so much growth happening in his life as well that he's taken time out to come here and be with us and talk about this amazing topic of soul purpose. So if this is the first time that you're meeting Steve, let me just share with you, he creates meditational videos that are transmissions from different energies across the planet that will shift and change you dramatically. If you haven't checked out his YouTube channel, you've got to check out Steve Nobel's YouTube channel. He is the owner of the Soul Matrix. We also have the Akashic Records in common. And this is somebody who is on the forefront of creating transformational space for all of us to grow. And if this is the first time that you've been introduced, then it is my pleasure and honor to introduce you to Steve Nobel. Steve, thank you for being here. How are you, my friend?
I'm good.
What's been happening in your life since the eclipse? That was really the last time that we were hanging out together.
Yeah, the eclipse. Well, this last solar eclipse was a release for me personally. Up to about 2 weeks or 10 days before that eclipse, I felt this tension, and clients were complaining about all kinds of things. And then the solar eclipse released it. Seemed to be a release, and so that was wonderful. I was kind of waiting for it. And now, I mean, London is freezing, by the way. Russian winter is sweeping across Europe. London's freezing. So I've been out today visiting friends. I mean, I realized that with all the work I do, it's important to, and work is increasing, like your work is increasing, because just the demand for it. And at the same time, just making space for ordinary things, you know, going by the river, drinking tea, or having an odd glass of wine or something, you know, that fun things, making space for fun.
Yeah, I felt that energy move through my body, just as you said that, because I found that really is a big key for soul purpose, is being happy and living here. Like, there are so many different aspects to soul purpose. There's like the physical, what is my job? What am I here to do on the planet? There's the emotional aspect of, you know, how am I supposed to feel while I'm doing that, which is plays such an important role. Let's dive right in, because I know that there are so many people who feel like they need to figure out what this is sooner than later, what their soul purpose is. Yeah. So give us your breakdown, like guide us in this direction of what do we need to understand, and how do we plug into figuring all this out?
Well, soul purpose is, let me see, what can I say? When you're immersed in 3D reality, a 3D matrix, soul purpose sounds like a good idea. You know, it sounds like, yeah, wouldn't that be nice? And there's a kind of, wouldn't that be nice? But what about my mortgage? What about my rent? What about my life? What about blah, blah, blah? So, but when it becomes more than just a nice idea, and when it becomes kind of guiding, I really want to find, you could say, meaning or aliveness or authenticity rather than soul purpose. The words doesn't matter really. It's like there's some guiding force inside going, not that way, that way. And when it comes, and it's coming increasingly in these years to star season light workers, because this is a time of waking up. And it can seem inconvenient as well. You know, like you got your life going, you know, you may have a relationship, a job, a house, whatever, and suddenly there's a calling to go somewhere else, and it can be very inconvenient. And I know that for myself, that I was going, no, this is inconvenient, I'm happy here, I'm not going to kind of do that. But some people, they're going the opposite. They say, no, I'm very unhappy, I'm with you, I'm going. So it depends where you're at in your life, but it's an inner calling. And like Joseph Campbell did it really well, you know, the hero's journey, you know.
Yes, I do. It's so synchronous. I was just having a conversation with a new friend the other day who was talking about how the hero's journey had played such a role in the creation of her business. And I'm like, are you kidding? I've got that book on my nightstand. Like,
Oh.
yes, I am with you on Joseph Campbell, JC in the house right here with us.
Well, you've got to watch him on YouTube, you know, interviewed by Bill Moyers. Was it The Power of Myth? The Power of Myth, Joseph Campbell, interviewed by Bill Moyers. And I, to be honest, I was just as impressed with Bill Moyers as Joseph Campbell, because Bill was just struggling to kind of understand and keep going, you know, this Southern Baptist type of journalist. You know? So Joseph coined the phrase "follow your bliss," and he also realized that our culture teaches us the very opposite. Don't follow your bliss. Do what, you know, where's the money? How are you going to climb on the social ladder? Blah, blah, blah. So follow your bliss is radical. It's radical. And when I think he started talking about this in the 50s or even 60s when he was teaching it at school, telling his students to follow your bliss. It's radical, you know, radical. So it's an inner calling to something else, and that the challenge is at the beginning that something else is intangible. You know, we've got all the tangibilities of our life, you know, the rent, the girlfriend, and everything, and this intangible something going, I want to do, and so we've got to turn the intangible into what is it? Where do I go? And I think of purpose more as direction than purpose, because purpose can sound like a bit like, if someone says, what's your purpose? It can be almost insulting. Like, if you don't have a purpose, you don't have a reason to be on the planet. But if you say instead, what's your direction? And consciousness is directional. So our conscious mind knows future, it knows past, and it has a sense of all these other kind of timelines that's going. So soul purpose is a timeline that we step on or avoid. Now, there are timelines which, the conventional 3D timeline, which is like you go to work, you come home, you watch TV, all of that stuff. And if someone just asked, who is this author you're talking about? I saw it flash up. Joseph Campbell. He was the inspiration. Yeah, he was the inspiration behind Star Wars, the hero's journey. And stepping off that old timeline is the key to it is aliveness, is authenticity, is there's a sense of energy suddenly where there wasn't energy. It's just you're going through the motions, you know, the what do you call it, automatic pilot. You know, we can go on automatic pilot. And I don't know if you know, remember your old life, Emily? I don't know. I mean, we may have exciting lives and do exciting things, but there may be a certain automatic pilot about it. We're not stretching, we're not growing. And soul purpose is about growth, and the prime directive of the soul is growth. It wants us to grow. It doesn't want us to kind of come in, even if we have a really nice life. At the end of the life, what did we gain? What did we learn? Well, I had a good time. What did you gain? What did you learn? Nothing. Then the prime directive, joy is fantastic, but the prime directive of the soul is growth, and we can grow through joy or we can grow through suffering. So direction is where is calling you. And some of the formula I would say for this is, what do you dream about? What does your heart really feel? And a lot of people are shut down. They go, well, I don't know. You know, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what I have to do. I know what I'm being told to do. I know I've got all these obligations. But what is your heart saying? And really, it takes some energy of turning inwards and really introspection, silence. What is my heart calling? And if your heart's closed, it's a tough question for some people. So opening your heart, what's in there?
There's some excavation that has to go on, you know, getting down in some self-excavation. Guys, are you feeling the energy just like pulse through your body as Steve is talking? Somebody mentioned out there that they like the sound of your voice. I just want to quickly interject and then let Steve keep talking, because he is shifting and changing us. But I want to bring your awareness to the fact that Steve has been given a voice that has a vibrational quality that is shifting these things in you. So just you being here right now and you showing up, you are undergoing shift and change. And I want you to bring your awareness to that so you can harness as much of that as possible. As he is sharing this knowledge with us and as he is talking us through this understanding, we are shifting and growing and changing, and you are aligning to the place where you're going to be able to figure out your bliss and where your growth is. So just wanted to tell you guys, just you being here and listening and opening up to that, the shift is happening. And thank you for doing that for us, just by sharing who you are right now. Okay.
I get a lot of people say, I go to bed with your voice in my head. You know,
I do that.
My girlfriend says that your voice is in my head. You know, I'm like, oh well, I hope that's a nice thing for people anyway. So there's this calling, and I mean, one of the things I do work with is these kind of transmissions, and even in this talk, I'm trying to get the space to be held by these angelic forces and these grids of light, which are holding us, the Earth grid and the grid from the central sun. So when people feel the energy, they're really feeling those energies through the voice. It's not necessarily my voice; it's just I'm just a channel or the opening for it, and it comes through. So I don't even know really what I'm going to say to you. You know, just being present, breathing with love within makes all the difference. Yeah, being present for sure, not allowing the ego to run amok inside our reality. And in the 3D matrix, the ego rules supreme. And I guess your listeners will know what I'm talking about. It means it's a fierce critic. You know, we're trained to be fiercely critical of ourselves and other people. We're trained to, particularly in America, I noticed America's a go for it culture. Let's go, go, go. Are you moving? Are you going? You know,
yes.
I was in Texas a few years ago and I noticed this constant movement, you know, people moving, no stillness. It was very hard to find stillness. There may be programming around pleasing people. There may be programming around rescuing people, all these programmings, you know. And if we're running on these programmings, we're not really opening the heart. We're not. And part of the awakening process and soul purpose and awakening kind of go hand in hand. As we awaken, then we can get on track with our life. You know, as we start getting more on track, we awaken more. They're kind of a dual thing that goes on. And this hero's myth, this hero's journey, Joseph would say there's a calling, and it may be a vague calling. It might be really strong. You know, I want to start an Akashic Academy, or I want to start a family, or I want to move to, you know, Ibiza in Spain or something. There's a strong calling, or it may be vague. My life's not quite working. Something else. And even the thought, there must be more to life than this. You know I've had that thought. My life's kind of on automatic and not really great. There must be more to life than this. Typically, what Joseph says is you step up to the threshold. The threshold is a kind of gateway between your old life and the new life. And what commonly happens is we step close to the gateway and we go, no. I'm
out of here. Yeah, we resist the call, don't we? We're like, go the other direction.
Emily, I guess maybe you were thinking about this business and this whole shift of work way back, and you may have kind of a couple of times gone, no. I don't know if you recognize that.
I do, and I recognize it even like almost a lifetime ago when I was still in Hollywood and playing in that sandbox, because I realized that I was a storyteller at that point in time too, and I was a channel, which makes sense when you start to understand acting and like playing these characters and allowing characters to come through you. So I was playing out this bigger calling that I felt in a different playing field, like almost in a parallel universe in the Hollywood realm. And so I recognized that coming up to that threshold and then kind of moving back. And once I made the shift and the jump over into what I would consider 5D, where this is now playing out in just like a different arena, not in Hollywood now, it's in sharing this energy with the planet, this storytelling that changes us. But yeah, I definitely come up and then I'm like, oh, I don't know about this. I'm not so sure. This feels big. Am I ready for this? So yeah, I see this pattern playing out in my life right now, but even before now, it was the cycle and pattern that I was in.
Yeah. And I think I'm sure most of your listeners would feel this idea of resistance. You know, resistance is normal. We step up. to the platform, and then we step back a few times. We're kind of getting a feel. No, my life's okay. And I know many years ago, I've been through this process a few times. And many years ago, in the when was it? The late 90s, I wanted to leave my old corporate job, and I was like, yeah. And I even wrote my resignation letter, and I handed it in, and then they refused it. And I'm like, oh, thank God for that. The resistance went, oh, phew. Well, I've done it now. Obviously, the universe doesn't want me to resign. I kind of reframed it all in that kind of light. And I stayed there for another 1 or 2 years. Sure, I was learning, but it was learning through suffering and struggle, immensely. And then finally, I just thought, I can't do this anymore. And I asked the universe, and I got the answer to go. And so I resigned. And then I was out and on the whole journey. Once you make the decision, that you can't go back. I mean, I resigned and I left. It's like when I left my marriage, I threw my wedding ring in a lake in California. There's no going back. I can't get that ring back. There's no way I can explain that. I was through the threshold. I decided I was going to leave the marriage. So there are steps we take when we know there's no going back. Sometimes people make a step and they go, oh, but you can come back. So we step and we go. We're on the journey. Once we're on the journey, the universe responds to us. Now, I know when I was on the threshold going, I'm waiting for the universe to give me, a door or an answer or something. And it just doesn't happen because we haven't taken the step. And part of us, our ego, is saying, well, when the universe gives us the step, we'll take it. But the universe is going, are you going to take the step? Even though you don't quite know, or where it's going to lead. And it's all part of the trust. And if we're doubting the universe or testing the universe, it's going to go, no, it don't work that way. Take the step. So when I took the step back in the 90s, I remember this double rainbow appearing. And I was like, wow. And the aliveness in my body was incredible. And I went back and I met my old boss a few days later to collect my things or something. I don't know. And I just looked around and I saw the absolute darkness or depression in where I was working, and I thought, but I was separated from it. I was out. Now, if I hadn't have taken that step, all this stuff I'm doing now, no way, Jose. You say that in America? No way, Jose. So then that opened up a whole journey, which opened up a whole amazing exploration. I became a director of this amazing spiritual company. I was seeing amazing authors every week. I was absorbing. I was training with channels. I was training, but it was an amazing experience. Yes. And then the hero's journey was calling me again. So and then it was like, oh no, not again, So I resisted it, but I was thrown on the journey. Eventually, I eventually had to take the journey. So when we step on there, there's all kinds of things that happen. We meet this resistance, and it may feel like I'm going to create this amazing company, or I'm going to do this amazing thing. Now I know I'm well on my journey now, but I had this opportunity given to me about a month ago. It's a big step up. An American big platform said we want to host you, and by the way, we've got 100,000 people on our list, and you're going to be exposed, to all this audience. And I went, that's great. But afterwards, I was like, oh my God! I remember feeling there was something I was hitting against, and I really had to process it and go through. So resistance is always going to be there, as long as we're alive. What is resistance? Fear, doubt, confusion, over rationalization. It can be drama. It can be all kinds of stuff trying to distract you. It can be the doubting committee, not your own doubt, but people might say and never work out, and they're just reflecting your own inner doubt. All this stuff can go on. There's lots more resistance patterns, and we all have our own unique flavor of it. So when we're on the journey, it comes up. The ego starts to go mental. My God, you've done it. What are you doing? What will your mother say? I remember on this particular journey, I did my first workshops on star seeds 2 years ago. And I remember thinking, is this a good idea? I had this download, run a workshop star seeds. I think, is this a good idea? Is anybody be interested? Are there anybody out there who thinks of themselves that way? I wasn't even sure I thought of myself that way then, but I was getting this strong impulse. Yeah. So I did it. And on the morning of the workshop, I woke up and this voice in my head said, don't tell me you're really going to go through with this. It was a really strong voice. I went through with it. People went mental in a way. They were crazy for it. And I'm still getting this expanding, audience of people going, yeah, I recognize what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so suddenly there's this audience, whereas 2 years ago, I might have got one client a week. Now it's like ba-bang,
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing we meet the kind of demon, the witch. In classical stories, there's a dragon or the witch, which we have to meet and overcome. So stories like when was it Ulysses met Circe, the witch? Do you know the story in the was it after the fall of Troy? And he meets this witch, and he has to kind of not kill her, but he has to get round her and make her an ally, which is what he did.
Yes.
And you can research the story. It's a brilliant story, But then we get supernatural help. The universe steps in and goes, okay, you're on your path. We see you, and here you go. And in all the myths.
Can I share quickly? One of my favorite quotes out there is, "Be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid." And that's something that has just like resonated in the back of my mind anytime I'm on that place where you got to take that step and the universe comes. And yes, that is truth. You are speaking truth to us.
Yeah. Well, in all the films, the myths, you get these goddesses come in, or you might get Hermes coming in, giving magical tools or implements, shields and helmets and all kinds of things to help you on the path. And the journey is then really finding the goal. The goal might be some golden fleece, or it might be, I don't know, whatever the goal is in your particular journey. Let's say it is to create a business, but the journey doesn't end there. You've created the business, you create the company, you're going, I'm here, create the website or whatever you're doing. And then the journey is back to share it with the community. It's a kind of circular journey. But people might be saying, yeah, that's all very well and good, but I've got no idea which direction I'm heading in. I've got no idea.
I think Terry said that right there. She said, I'm still living in a void. Yep.
Yeah. Well, the four areas, I think, if you can imagine a Venn graph, I know you've got this kind of lovely flower of life symbol or seed of life symbol behind you. If you can imagine these circles that overlap, and one circle is circle of dreams. What do you dream about? And again, it's this taking time for reflection, just going out and just going, what would you love to show up in your reality? If you took away all the fear and everything, just sit with it. And I actually do exercise of circle of dreams where I write everything in my dominant hand and then non-dominant hand, and allowing other parts to come through. Woo! The child and the adolescent can come through here. Dominant hand, my dominant personality, and then the other one. And then imagine writing, if you're writing in straight lines, imagine writing in spirals. Imagine writing upside down. Imagine writing in symbols. So symbols are very powerful for our consciousness. Yes. Do this vast circle of dreams. Now, I've been doing this exercise for 20 years, and about 95% of all that stuff is manifested. I've experienced it. 5% hadn't, but I'm pretty sure I can't even remember what that 5% is now. I've got loads of them going back in time. One classic one was I used to train many years ago with this wonderful spiritual teacher, and she said to me, one of her dreams was to go and find magical tea shops, beautiful spaces, and have tea in it. And I listened to that thinking, what my ego said, what a waste of time is that? But then afterwards I sat with it and I thought, why didn't I try it? And I've been doing that practice for 20 years. I actually go and find all the best tea shops in the area, and I just sit there and I just absorb the energy and space. So I'm a tea shop king. I know all the best tea shops in London. So I discounted it. So the first stage is your dreams, and there's 3 places we can dream from. We can dream from the heart, which takes time. What does the heart want? We can dream from the head. What is your head wanting? Really tuning into the third eye. What does that part of me want? Which could also include the spirit, and include the gut. What does my body and gut want? Yeah, 3 levels. Yes. And then just do the exercise of dominant, non-dominant hand. Let it all come out. The great thing is you might be surprised what comes out. You might. So, for example, I wrote many years ago, I want to, with my non-dominant hand, my inner child said, I want to climb trees. And I'm like, wow, I never knew that. So I spent about several years climbing rocks as well, rocks and trees, and having great fun. I mean, I don't quite do it now. I'm getting on a bit, I do other things. But well, actually, I recently thought I'd like to go back and do martial arts. And so I just joined up again. And I've been doing martial arts, So even though it's a bit out of my zone, I haven't trained in like 40 years. I went back in, and it's great. So dreams is the first one. The second one is values. Now, this is classic. Most values is the language of the soul. Dreams is the language of the soul. Values is the language of the soul. What do you value? So if someone had said to me many years ago, what do you value? I'd have gone, what? I don't know. It's very easy also to take on the value of our parents. If we're living in a void of I don't know, the parents' values or family values come in. And so I lived in the void, in the vacuum of my family values, which was security. That was it. Security was my value. So I went in banking. Hated it. I didn't know. And when I actually had an opportunity to experience my own values, I went in, I found spirituality, creativity, freedom, and learning. 4 values that really came top. And if I looked around at the jobs in the corporate world, and what is really being fulfilled in any of those, if it's nothing, you're in the wrong direction. Some people may have a corporate job where it fulfills all of these things. Fantastic. So values is the language of the soul. And really, what do I value? And there are all kinds of, if you go on Google, values lists, there are all kinds of from A to Z on values, you know, from abundance to self-expression to I don't know, anything. So the thing about values is they're more about essence than form. So a creativity is an essence, it's not a form. When I realized creativity was important, I had to go, well, what kind of creativity then? I've got a general. So I explored stained glass, I explored fiction writing, I explored jewelry making, I explored lots of stuff. And it was just like, no, it's not quite doing it, not quite doing it.
Yeah.
And then I found nonfiction writing and boom, this energy surged through me. And the soul speaks in this, you know that old game kids used to play, you're getting warmer, you're getting warmer, you're getting colder, colder.
Yes, yes.
That's the language of the soul. Warmer, warmer, colder, more alive, more alive. Less alive, less alive. It's speaking to us all the time.
Awesome.
Just have to listen to it. So the other one is our strengths, which might sound pretty straightforward, but in most coaching sessions, people discount their own strengths, or they don't even know what they're good at. Now, my son many years ago said, Dad, I'm struggling. This is when he was about 18. I want you to help me. So I sat down with him. What are you good at? And just classic coaching, really. And then he said, I don't know. And I said, well, I know that you're good with people. And he's very good at talking people down, you know, from like violent situations. And he said to me, but everyone's good at that. And it's so classic. Everyone feels what I'm good at is just not worth it. Everyone's like that. I said to him, no, not everyone's not good at that. You are good at that. And he then went on to get a job which earned more money outside his zone than he'd ever had. And he was just like amazed, like, you know, he's still on that journey. He's just recently, again, gone beyond the kind of barrier because he actually also has a big value on money. It was one of the values he has. Money equals I can, you know, get on my journey, buy a house, for a lot of people. Freedom. So that was something very important to him. So I often say to him that Jerry Maguire quote, show me the money. So if I call him, I say, Peter, how you doing? Show me the money. And he just laughs. It's a great way of humor. So strengths. If people can write down what they're good at. Now, I've had people say, I'm not good at anything. If you're good at making apple pie, that is an amazing gift. If you're good with children, if you're good with making people feel better about themselves, just brainstorm everything. So that's the third one. Now, the fourth one, which is important, is challenges. This is an odd one for people because they go, well, how's that going to show me where I'm supposed to go? But the challenges in our lives are tend to be cyclical and like the spiral, you know. We hit a challenge, which might be, I don't know, self-confidence or fear around money or something. And then we come again at a higher level and another one.
Yes, that was me in Hollywood the whole time. I'm working through the idea of rejection and somebody else telling me that I'm valid and then money. Like I would get a job and, you know, in the acting world, they pay you a lot of money to show up, but they don't pay you that every single day. You got to keep getting more and more jobs. So I would break through that ceiling and I'd be like, yes, And then I wouldn't get another job for 6 months. And I'd be like, no. And it was that spiral effect of me continuing to work on those same issues over and over. And I was growing a little bit, but for the most part, I felt like I was in a washing machine cycle, just like over and over and over.
It's kind of like up and down. I imagine the feast or famine, isn't it? A little bit feast or famine type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for challenges, the first place to look for your challenges is your family conditioning. You know, this is the base root of all challenges. What your mother and father said to you, and what messages they were giving out, what challenges they had that somehow you resonate with, because we can resonate without. So, for example, my father did a job he basically hated for all of his life. He never told me that, but I could see by his attitude that he came home, he hated something in him wasn't alive, and wasn't happy. And he also gave me the impression that I should get a proper job. And I struggled with this one for years because I didn't even know what a proper job was. So, and then I struggled at banking and all this. And then I finally realized that actually, I don't even think he knew. His idea of a proper job would be working in a factory. He's working class. I didn't want to do that, so I had to destroy that message. So we have to look at this challenge of, I was trying to fit in with my father's idea of get a proper job. Don't be too out there. Be normal. Be whatever.
Find that, I just wanted to interject quickly. Sorry, I know I want you to keep talking. I find that with so many people that I work with, especially and taking it from like that divine masculine of stepping into your power and what is it that you do, it affects the divine feminine as well. Our mothers subconsciously teach us how to treat ourselves. And so many mothers are so busy putting themselves aside and taking care of all of the other things that they need to take care of, that we subconsciously don't even understand how to properly love ourselves. So between our mother and our father, God love them, we're not, we're glad that they did the job that they did, but we've learned some things that are not helping us in terms of our programming. We're giving ourselves the opportunity to see from a bigger picture and to release those programs and to create a new program for ourselves. But it really requires some high level growth of the soul to be able to get in there and see it that way.
Well, you're a parent, Emily. I know I see these wonderful parent pictures on Facebook. I'm a parent, a grandparent now. And what I realize is it's actually what parents try and do is impose the values onto their children. And even if those values feel great, it's not a good idea, because the children are coming in now are so advanced and growing so fast that actually they have their own value system. We just need to find out what's alive in them and bring it out. We don't need to kind of stamp them. Even if we think that freedom is amazing, if we try and impose it, they'll go the opposite way. They go, you know what? I'm not doing that. So my stepson said years ago, when me and his mother were really into spirituality, we had spiritual stuff on the walls everywhere, and he said to me one day, or both of us one day at dinner, I'm an atheist. And I thought, that's fantastic. This is what we've been waiting for. You have to be, because we've got this value of spirituality, but we don't want to impose it. If you're an atheist, you're going to find out your own journey. So the challenges point the way you're going to come. So if your family are in fear around money, if your family are limited around the work they can do, you'll never go any higher than this kind of glass ceiling, then this is your challenge. This is where you're moving towards, that you can break free. So challenges actually point potentially to where you're going, right? So if you really look down at what are my challenges, so if it's fear or self-confidence, or then it could be courage and faith and movement, moving forward, taking that step. If it's self-esteem or self-worth, let's say self-worth, deservability, if it's I'm not capable, I'm resourceful, the opposite. What is the opposite? 3D is a polarity system. So if you feel I'm not capable, and I felt this way, working in a bank, stamping paper through, I didn't feel I had any other than stamping bits of paper. I thought, what am I good for? If I leave this job, what can I do? So I had to dig deep, and inside all of us is this thing called inner potential. That's a very vague term until it becomes real. Inner potential is a seed inside of us that it has to be planted, watered, light, love, and then the seed grows. But we don't know if that seed's an apple tree or a pear tree or a cherry tree. We don't know until it comes out. So when I was sitting in this bank years ago, actually, funnily enough, I walked past that building today with my girlfriend. I looked at it and thought, when I was sitting in there, I didn't know I was a writer. I didn't know that I could do transmissions. I didn't know I could run a company. I didn't know any of these things. All I knew was that. So until you get on the journey, we don't know. That's why the journey is so important. Follow your bliss. Get on a journey. Try it out. Now, reality is a feedback system.
Say that again. That's big.
Reality is a feedback system. Now, I have clients. I had one beautiful woman 2 weeks ago who said to me, I've met my soulmate. I'm so certain about it. But basically, the reality was saying, no, you haven't. The guy was saying, I don't want you to call me. Don't bother me. Don't. But she said to me, you know what? But I know he's my twin flame or soulmate, whatever it was. And I said, hello, are you listening to reality? Reality is a feedback system. Your intuition can say this stuff. And we need to listen to intuition and reality, both. People who only listen to reality and ignore their intuition are missing half the journey, and vice versa. If we trust our intuition, but sometimes our intuition is slightly off. We get a feeling and we kind of we kind of make it mean something else. We have to listen to feedback. Now, one client was on her business, doing this business, and one of the feedbacks for her was how much money she was making. And I said, well, how much money are you making then? And it wasn't really good. So something needs to be adjusted, right?
Yes.
It's not like she was saying, I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm doing it wrong. I was saying, no. You just need to adjust what you're doing. Let's look at your website. Let's look at your marketing. Let's look at your copy. Let's look at what you're actually doing. Is this in line with who you are? All this stuff, So reality is a feedback system. So all of this is directional. We have intuition, which is a compass saying not that way, that way. If we really tune into it and develop our intuition, it will give us a sense of go that way. Shall I date Bob or shall I date Simon? The intuition will give you a sense. And also reality speaking all the time. Should I start this business here or shall I go there? Or shall I resign from my job or stay in my job? Intuition is such a powerful thing. The left brain ego logic is a powerful tool, but it does not guide your journey. If anyone's journey is being guided by the left brain logic, you need to go and see someone for help, because you will need other people's intuition to guide you, because your own one, you're not listening to it. In terms of our left and right brain, our right brain intuition is closest to our soul. And the soul speaks to us primarily through the body, through feeling, to the intuition. And then the left brain is kind of the last one to get it. So in an ideal world, if your left and right brain is balanced, you'll get the feeling of something, and then you'll look at it through your logical mind and go, can I make this happen? How can this happen? Can I set a strategy? Have I assessed all the options or not? So the left brain is brilliant, but it doesn't guide us. It's like a company. If you imagine a company, the best companies these days are guided by visionaries. They're not guided by left brain managers. And a lot of companies put the left brain manager as CEOs and the visionaries underneath them. It's disaster. It's a disaster, absolutely, waiting to happen. So there you go. Anyway, sorry, I've rambled on. I'll let you some of the guys want to ask something, or you want to ask something, comment something on that. Otherwise, I'll just ramble on.
All right, guys. Well, Steve's opened up the floor. You guys can start asking him questions. I know you guys are going to be furiously typing in. So I'm just going to give you a recap of this amazing exercise that Steve just broke down for us. Okay, so you're going to start with your dominant hand, and you're going to write down your dreams. And you don't even necessarily write them linearly. Write them in a circle, okay? You're going to write them, and then you're going to switch, and you're going to your non-dominant hand, and you're going to write down. So we start with dreams, and we're just going to write it in whatever way all over the paper that we're going to write, and we're going to let that come out. Oh, we're going to do it in a really cool tea shop too, by the way. So I know what you guys are going to be doing for the rest of the afternoon, all right? So we start with our dreams, dominant hand, non-dominant hand. All right, then we're going to talk about our values. What's important to you? What are those things that make you go yes? Okay, for me, creativity, storytelling, abundance, healing. All of these things are some of the things that are my values. Connection, compassion, growth is a huge one for me. I'm going to write it with my dominant hand and then my non-dominant hand. All right, then I'm going to take a look at my strengths. You know, one of my husband's giftings in this life is he really focuses on strength-based leadership. And he has a degree in psychology, and traditional psychology really starts to assess what's wrong with us. Okay, there's an amazing program at the University of Penn State, I believe, where I think it's, now I'm forgetting his name, Robert Blink, I think. Sorry, Mr. Blink, if I got you wrong. But he wrote this amazing book, and he's shifting the way that psychology is even working so that we can start to assess what our strengths are, because we've been approaching our life based on what are our deficits and how do we fix that for a really long time. And that's done. So we're going to clear out that, and we're going to say, what are we good at? What are my strengths? Again, dominant hand, non-dominant hand. All right. And then we're going to take a look at our challenges. What are the challenges that we faced in our life? All right. So maybe you faced abundance challenges. I know I have. I shared with you guys that I've raised my ceiling on how much I could make in acting, and then I would fall back down, and then I would get back up there, and then I would fall back down. And it created like an automatic pilot that we talked about, that system, which I'm learning to shift now. But that's been one of my challenges in my life that I've worked on. I've had a lot, and I've had nothing. Like the stressful nothing where you're hanging out at the welfare office, nothing. Okay. I've been on both ends of that. So I'm going to really start assessing what my challenges are. Maybe you have interpersonal challenges in your relationship, right? Maybe you can't find that right relationship and they keep going bad. Whatever your challenges are, we're going to go dominant hand, we're going to go non-dominant hand. And we're going to start allowing, this is a self-excavation process. All right. This is really what we're doing, is we're getting this stuff out so that we can see and understand it in a deeper way. All right. So how did I do with the recap? Am I a good student? Yes.
Yeah.
I like being a good student. There's my people pleaser coming out right now. I like to be the girl at the front of the class going, oh me, oh me. When I was doing my Akashic Records training, I think I made the other students roll their eyes more than once because that was me. I'm like, oh, I got this one. All right, guys, time to open up for your questions. I don't see any of your questions coming in. So
we've overwhelmed everyone.
I know, we got them. They're sitting like this. They're like, oh my gosh, my life just totally changed in this moment. I got to get to a tea shop right away.
The thing I'd say while they're thinking about it is there's in terms of energy, it's like the forward movement would be, I really feel called forward, but there may be this backward movement. So of course, when the joy of it, when the bliss of it, when the excitement of it, when the inspiration of it moves us forward more than our resistance, then we will move forward. You know, the resistance may be there, but we can, Tony Robbins, overwhelm your resistance with yay, 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 yay. So if your challenge, as someone flashed up, is to find your authentic self, your authentic voice. One of my challenges was to find my authentic voice. I didn't feel I had my voice. I didn't even know what my authentic voice or self-expression was. I had no idea. And it wasn't until I started writing in this non-fiction way that I could actually process deeply powerful things in my life through the book. So the last book I wrote was called Personal Transitions, which was a very challenging 5 years of doing this awakening and dark night of the soul. In there, I put all of my personal story, which I would never have shared. It was just too personal, and I put it in. And now when I read it, actually, I realize I didn't put enough in. I would have gone further, but at the time, that felt like I was going way out there, and now I'd go much, much further. So there are always limits to stuff. And when I thought I'm going real out there on my self-expression, I was still holding back. And sometimes I listen back to interviews and I listen, what did I actually say? And then it's good to actually replay it in my own mind and go, where was I holding back there? Where was I not really showing up, or where was I not really serving what the audience was? Where was I kind of going off on some kind of head trip or something? So feedback is good. Keep expanding, growing. There are always limits. There's limits to joy. There's limits to love. There's limits to abundance. Even when we reach a certain limit, which is amazing, the limit's still there. We have to keep pushing it out, it out. I had a partner who had this brilliant, it didn't feel very brilliant at the time. When we would have this great sense of joy bouncing backwards and forwards, it got to a certain level where I could see it in her face and physiology. That's enough joy. I'm not going anymore.
Yep.
And it kept going on and on and on. And I actually said to her, do you realize what you're doing? That when we hit this joy level, you throw something in that kind of spirals the energy down. And she kind of went, no, I don't. She didn't.
Of course she did.
Didn't want to hear that one. But it was something I think eventually she heard, and
Mhm.
it's easy to spot in somebody else. But where am I sabotaging my,
Mhm.
that's enough joy, that's enough love, that's enough support, that's
Mhm.
enough appreciation,
Yeah.
And I know if
I've
I get loads of appreciation, I start getting,
yeah.
I get all these love notes, and I'm like, does everybody appreciate me? Oh.
Seriously, one time I went in on an audition, and it was just for a commercial audition, so it wasn't like a big make or break kind of thing. But the casting guy came out, and he said to me, "You're Emily," and I was like, "Whoa." He knows me. And he goes, "I was at a film festival this weekend and I saw your last film and I saw that you were coming in and I'm so excited." And he's going on and on and on and on. And it's for this car commercial, right? And my line is like this ridiculous line that, like, short is simple. I get in there, and if anyone has ever blown an audition, that was me in that moment. Like, I couldn't, he had pumped me up so much, I couldn't rise to the occasion, even deliver I love driving my Audi or whatever my line
Yeah,
was. I
yeah,
was just blowing it over and over and over again. And I thought, as soon as I left, I had the insight to understand exactly what had happened to me in that moment. But yeah, it got me good. I
yeah,
couldn't even go in there and say like a simple five word sentence without looking like an absolute ass. And I was like, oh man, that sucks. But
yeah,
there's growth to be learned in that. And there, I shared with you before we came on here that there's been a huge transition in my life.
yeah,
And we went from really being in a place of struggle the last year that we were in Southern California, because again, we had just gotten to the point where the universe is saying, this is not the place you're supposed to be anymore, to such a huge opening of what felt like we won the lottery. Like, my husband got this amazing job at this amazing school. This school is completely in line with my values, my vision of wanting to transform the planet. They're doing it with children. They gave all of my kids, all three of them, free tuition to this school. And I'm sitting here thinking, all right, I do not want to sabotage this. Like, I recognize that I have limits to my joy, to my abundance. What am I going to do to make sure that this doesn't get screwed up? And the answer I got was, because you guys know I use the realm of the Akashic Records, which many of us are using and we don't even realize it. You ask a question in sincerity, you open to receive the answer that comes from you, from spirit. But what I was told was, meditate specifically for the purpose of expanding how much joy your energy circuits can hold. And
yeah,
so the way I imagine that column of light, you guys know because you meditate with me all the time, anchor it into Mother Earth, into the space of the ether, the Akash, the great central sun, like whatever you call that space. And I slowly started expanding it until it was like, it went from a tube to like one of those tunnel slides that you're in as a kid. And you have to go slowly, because it's like upgrading an electrical system. You don't want to blow the circuits. You got to allow yourself to expand. So I
yeah,
set an intention to expand how much light energy of joy and abundance that I could hold in my life without blowing my own circuits. So feel free to take that as your second little exercise of the day. As you're on your way to your tea shop this afternoon for your
or coffee
writing out,
shop in America, is it?
yep, coffee shop over here. Go ahead and allow that to be part of your process too. Go ahead and give yourself the permission to expand what it is that you want to hold in your life.
Yeah. I saw someone flash up talking about their story, rewriting the story. Did you see that?
Yeah, let me go find that one.
Um, the story of our lives. It's really another interesting exercise, which I've come across, is if the story of your life was a book, play, a book, play, or film, what would it be currently as it is playing now? And I read Lord of the Rings 15 times by the time I was 21. 15 times. So I kind of
Wow.
thought there's something in that book that keeps pulling me back. And when I looked at the characters, when I looked at the theme of light versus dark, when I looked at the
Yes.
theme of the dark is so powerful and the light is just by accident going to somehow get through and throw the ring in the fire, by pure accident. There was so much in that film, that book, and who did I identify with? There's lots of characters there. So this is an interesting one possible story, or you could even write out what are the main themes in your life. Is there a film or book that kind of relate to that? Really get clear. What are the main themes? There's always a main theme or sub themes. Get clear on it. And then I decided, well, how would I like to rewrite this story? And again, I looked to a book or film or play that identified the kind of life I wanted to step into. And the one that really spoke to me was Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
I want to be Indy.
Yeah.
I wanted to be with the whip and the hat. And I thought, rather being Frodo, kind of being, chased by these dark riders, I want to be Indy, and I wanted to approach life like Indiana Jones. And of course, he had challenges, in the films, but I love that kind of courage and faith and resourcefulness and humor. He had this great humor. Do you remember? He had fantastic humor about it. So I kind of wanted that, and I kind of meditated on, not that I wanted to look like him or be like him, it was a feeling of it. So in rewriting a story, we have to be honest about our current stories, our current challenges. It may be even in, what do you call it, children's stories, fairy tales.
Fairy tales.
Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah.
That was Hansel and Gretel was one that I really identified with. I didn't feel my family wanted me. I felt that they wanted me to get rid of me or something. They didn't take me into the forest or anything like that, but I felt that feeling, and I could identify with this kind of abandoned child. And a lot of the old fairy stories are very good for these dark archetypal stories, aren't they? Cinderella, Hansel and Gretel. So you can look also there in fairy stories. And then once you've got the one that resonates, find another one, start changing it. How would it shift? So these are kind of exercises that can be done. The other thing I want to just say about getting on the track with your soul purpose is probably two. There are a number of blocks to doing it, but two objections can be family.
Yes.
My parents will hate it. I can't do it because they'll really. And the thing about family is we have a core rule of family systems is belonging. Even if my family is totally screwed up, totally dysfunctional, I want to belong with them, which is why so many people go dysfunctional to be loyal to their family.
Yes.
So it's around, are you willing to step out, even if it means possibly feeling disloyal to your family? You're not actually being disloyal to your family. There's a kind of loyalty. Am I going to be loyal to my own light and soul, or my family for some people? And when I left my first marriage, my children were very young, and I felt racked with guilt about this, but I knew it was the right thing. Now I've come back to them as a resource, having done this whole journey. My grandchildren, I'm an amazing resource for them. And basically my kids don't really understand or recognize my journey. But my granddaughter said to me the other day, she's 8, "Granddad, I want to be an author like you." And it's the first time anyone in my family's ever recognized anything. And I was so knocked back because suddenly I'm a resource rather than a grumpy old guy who's been in a corporation and just diminished. I'm not diminished. I've gone on a journey, and like for you, your kids and your grandkids, you're a resource because of your journey, and your husband's a resource. So the other thing is, it's not selfish. Some people think it's selfish. You become a resource for other people, if not in your family, in your soul family further down the line. The other thing about the soul purpose, which is often, we've talked about it here, is abundance. Money. In the 3D matrix, money is king. In America, dollar is king, right? I was always told dollar is king in America.
Yep. No way, Jose, and dollar is king. That's what we say over here.
So how do we deal with money? And money is for some people, money's not the main issue, but for a lot of people, spiritual people, money's the issue. One of the reasons that money's the issue is because we have learned for centuries to separate spirituality and money. If you were a monk in the 8th century in England or in France or something, you take vows of poverty, you would renounce everything, you get rid of everything. You had no concept of being spiritual and having lots of possessions. There was no concept of it. And that went on for centuries and centuries and centuries. And now suddenly we're in an age where there are no mountains, there are not enough caves to go and sit in, to go and awaken. So now money is an energy, and this is part of this shift that we need to embrace as energy, fuel for the journey. If we haven't got enough fuel for the journey, then in some parts of our journey we will struggle. we will still make it, because even with very little money, I found that all kinds of miracles can happen in those times. You found on the welfare line, I was wondering 2 years ago, I was wondering, how am I going to eat this week? You know, I don't have enough money to eat. Oh, I've got one client, I can eat the whole week.
Right.
And it got like that. And really what that does is it helps us face our deepest fear of being totally, like, you know, thrown in the gutter, totally homeless, totally our worst nightmare. I mean, mine was homelessness. You know, I can screw up so badly, I'll be in the gutter somewhere. You know, those guys you see sitting in the gutter that, you know? And I had that fear, and I thought, this is my fear. And so the universe goes, well, face it then. You don't necessarily have to be. Some people, they become homeless, but most people, it doesn't mean becoming homeless. Most people, it means actually facing that terror. Now, I some years ago, I started a business with 2 colleagues, and we used to sit there laughing. We did retreats and stuff, and these guys were laughing. I haven't got a pension, but you could feel the fear in the voice. They were laughing, but there was this kind of, we're on this business, but we've got no pension, you know. And I'm thinking, well, I haven't got much of a pension either. I haven't really thought about that. So, but I kind of not laugh nervously. These are all the stuff that comes up, you know. Will I have a home? Will I have a pension? Will I have all this stuff? But we face it. And fortune favors the brave. I mean, now in terms of abundance, I'm earning more money than I've ever earned in my life doing this crazy business, Starseed, which I never really started thinking I'm going to make a fortune. I just thought of it as service. But, you know, businesses need money. You know, if I want to come to America, I need a ticket. And if I want to build a website, I need money. And money is energy. And if we discount money, then there's a problem. Now, money in 5D is different to money in 3D. Well, this, in terms of dimensions, there's this 3D fear separation dimension where money is a control mechanism. Dark forces are very much holding
the Illuminati are coming after it, right?
You know, money is a controlled system, right? When we step out that control system, we step out the matrix. We enter 4D, which is 4D is we create our own reality. We create opportunities. We create amazing people. We create these amazing experiences, amazing tea shops, whatever it is. You know, 5D is a higher version of that. Now, 5D is a stabilization of love, a stabilization of worth, of resourcefulness, a stabilization of interconnectedness, a stabilization of miracle consciousness, really. And when you start, I mean, when that starts happening, the flow, it's like doors open, or I kind of think of miracles as ordinary now, where I get clients go, I've just had this miracle, and I go, what great. You know, I had this friend talking to me, this is about 3 weeks ago, saying, it was about money, actually. She said, you know what? And she kept talking about money in this heavy way. So I kept saying to her, what's the issue with money? And it boiled down to, well, if I have, this was her take on it. If I have a lot of money, I'll lose my integrity. This was her take. We all have our take. So I just challenged it, just going, you know, where do you get that from? And she was really shaken by it, and just let me process this, let me breathe, you know. And we were in a nice tea shop, actually.
Of course you were.
And over by this beautiful lake in London. It was fantastic. And then I said to her, well, what would you want? And then she said, well, I'd really want £1,000 for this, and £1,000 for that, and £1,000 for 3 things. She said, 3 lots of £1,000. And I went, why stop there? You know, and she was like, well, you could feel like she's hitting these limits, and, you know, I have to work hard for this, and blah, blah. She called me up 3 days later. Her father has just given her £10,000 out of the blue. And she was just ecstatic. She actually took me for this amazing, it was a tea shop right on the top of a skyscraper in the city of London, which was amazing. We had this amazing breakfast brunch with this view of London. And she was ecstatic that she said, it's amazing. And we'd also talked about doing a crowdfunding for some project. And I said, well, look, still do the crowdfunding, because money can still come in for that, you know. And she was like, oh, okay, you know, stretching the boundaries out. Money is energy, and money as energy can be repelled or attracted to us. But money is not the point of the journey. Money is the fuel for the journey. People who make it the point of the journey are being run by their, you know, by their ego. I've never found anybody on their circle of dreams really, really heartfelt, I must have a red Jaguar car, you know. I mean, a car really could be about freedom, but most people want other things, deeper things. Your soul mission is not about having a bigger house. It's not about having like The Secret. You know, I've got this big house. You too can have this amazing swimming pool, and they kind of missed the point a little bit.
A little bit, they did.
Yeah, where
they
it's
scratched
about
the surface, though. They got us thinking about it, at least, right?
they did. Yeah. You can create these things, but it's not about the universe will give you what you want because of some cosmic ordering list. The universe will give you what you're vibrating. If you're vibrating with possibility, and you know, our dreams vibrate at a high frequency. So I remember years ago thinking I want to be an author, and it felt up there. You know, I was here, and it was like such a stretch. You know, but I had to make it that I had to identify myself, raise my energy to that. And I've written 5 books, and I'll probably keep going, because now I feel I'm an author, I'm a writer, I can do it, you know. But back then it was a stretch. So we've got to kind of start. We've got to shift it. I think maybe Abraham talks about this. Does she? The channel? Maybe she does. I think I've heard somewhere she says. But it's really important that if our dreams vibrate higher than our energy, they may all be. We may touch them. Yes. And then, you know, we may have a little miracle and opening, and then there's a kind of disconnect until we stabilize. Yeah, we have to learn to stabilize in that, for sure. That's the journey, stabilizing in this energy. And, you know, I'll say to some people listening, because I think they need to hear it, no one said it was going to be easy. No one said it's going to be easy. When you step on the path, suddenly, you know, you're not, you know that film The Hobbit, where, I don't know if you've seen The Hobbit or read the book, where the wizard knocks on the door and says, come on an adventure. And the Hobbit, Bilbo Baggins, says, not for me, thank you. There's other people down the road who'd probably be more interested. I ain't going to do it. And he closed the door, and the wizard put a mark on the door saying, this is the guy. And all the dwarves came in and said, you know, you're the burglar. You're the one coming on an adventure. And he was taken on this amazing adventure. So, yeah, anyway, I've rabbited on. Anybody else got any questions? I've rabbited on for a long time. Yeah, any other questions coming up, guys? This is the time to stabilizing. Yes, in this new frequency in here. There was a question several ones back. I'm going to go see if I can find it really quickly. It seems more like a personal question about what Terry is going through. I'm going to go see if I can find it. And but so here we go. Since we are calling for questions, even though this might not necessarily be about soul purpose, I want to honor Terry, because we do keep asking for questions. And Terry asked one here. Why do I keep seeing loved ones in dreams and still living in the void? Who's living in the void? He is, or she is, or the? I believe Terry. Terry was the one who shared that she said that she was feeling in the void, and also sharing that was experiencing dreams of loved ones keep coming up, and maybe felt like that she was going to die because she kept seeing these loved ones who had passed. Yep. Terry says, "Me. It's me. It's me, Terry." Okay. Well. Who? Steve blew the circuits. Have I lost you, Emily? There, I lost you. No, your energy blew the circuits there. Sorry. Honestly, that was so huge. What you talked about when you're in the void, that it's one has fallen off and the other has not fully come into your existence, your clarity, your view at that point in time. I just took my head back to take it in because I felt how powerful it was. And blew the circuits for a little while. Blew the circuits, but you're back. You're back. Okay. Okay. It's like the caterpillar in the. Oh yeah. Oh my. What happened? Yeah. What happened? I don't know. You guys feel that? When I was in the void, I spent 10 days blowing circuits. I blew internet, I blew house fuses, I blew lamps, I blew crystals. Actually, I've got a crystal here, which is half the crystal. Someone gave me this crystal. It's a huge crystal. It blew into half. That's just half of it. The other half blew up. I put it in my hand. It exploded. When we're in the void, weird stuff can happen like that. Energy can start blowing, and crystals blow. I even took my son to the largest cinema in London, or England actually, and the projector blew up. And I'm like, whoa, this was all in 10 days. Every day stuff was playing. So it's more than coincidence anyway. When we're in the void, it's the caterpillar in the cocoon. You know, the caterpillar's in the cocoon going, what the hell is, yeah, someone likes my tourmaline. Yeah, I still kept it. Actually, the person who gave it to me heard me talk about this in an interview and apologized that I blew up her crystal and said she should buy me another one. I'm like, what? You know, I hid it from her. I didn't want to see that I'd blown it up. And I blew up quite a few crystals, actually. So the caterpillar's in the cocoon. The cocoon is that period of gestation. And what actually happens to a caterpillar when it's turning into a butterfly is that when the caterpillar starts the process, something called imaginal cells start expanding in the caterpillar's body. The caterpillar's immune system attack them, thinking it's an external virus or something's coming in. So there's a fight that goes on in the system. So this is very reflective of our higher self and ego. At the beginning, our higher self or soul is whispering and the ego's going, no, and there's this kind of fight that goes on. We're in this in the cocoon, and this what happens is the imaginal cells start overwhelming the immune system of the caterpillar, overwhelming it. Now, you imagine this fight going on inside of this person. This caterpillar's got no idea what's happening. I don't think it's got any idea. And then it emerges from this cocoon. Now, it can't emerge too quickly. If it emerges too quickly, the process is destroyed. So the emergence from the cocoon has to be at its own pace, like birth. You can't force it out. They say that if a child is birthed cesarean, that it shifts their psychology somehow. So the birthing out of the void is important. You can't jump out or force yourself out. You just have to wait. I was in it for 4.5 years. And then all this stuff started taking off, all this starseed ascension. That was my life. Some people are in it very quickly. I mean, one person said to me, I had a dark night of the soul last Tuesday. I didn't think that was probably a dark night of the soul. Not for last Tuesday, one day.
Yeah.
But maybe I got it wrong. Maybe it was a dark night last Tuesday. I don't know. So
I definitely had one of those outside. Well, I hit the bottom outside of Joshua Tree. I was very, very grateful to be going into this amazing space to do some healing afterwards. But yeah, it's a process for every single one of us. If you're finding yourself, guys, in the void, I'm going to invite you, connect with me, connect with Steve, find your tribe. One way to really start accelerating yourself through this process is to immerse yourself in people who are growing, who have that compassionate understanding for that process of growth. It's really quite an incredible time that we're here on the planet. You can't stop the awakening, the energy that's moving on the planet right now. It has to do with the bigger picture of how our solar system is flying through the cosmos right now and aligning to the galactic center. We're being bombarded by photons of light, which are carrying information, which are waking us up. So if you're feeling that's happening to you, there are plenty of people who can be resources that you can connect with, that can help you move through this process. Steve and I are both definitely here to share expansion and to support as you're going through this process, just by really sharing our journey as we're going through it. You guys have been really awesome. Steve, you've been awesome giving us so much of your time here today.
That's
Anything that you want to share before we wrap up today? I definitely want you to tell everybody where they can come and connect with you, but any final words of wisdom?
Yeah. Take silence, take time out. Don't be busyness is a resistance to your next step. Slow down, reflect, find time for gratitude. Gratitude, even if it's like the end of the day, 3 things that I love about today, it shifts your energy. Raising your energy is super important. It may be the sun rising, it may be flowers. It's simple things. And then take time to notice it. I remember the other day, something whispered in my ear, take time to notice the beauty around you. And I was walking through a street in London and I looked at the trees and the moss on the trees and the leaves. And I was like, and I spent a good time looking at these trees, and it just shifted my vibration. Process, reflect your ego, your belief systems, look at your values, what we talked about, strengths and challenges before. Take action. Very important. All this reflection and stuff.
Yes.
Take action and a step, and then listen to the feedback from the universe. You take the step and see what the response is. Like if you're, for example, I decided with my ex-partner to throw full moon dinner parties and see who turned up. We had packed. 30 people used to turn up in our living room, just sharing. We used to have this kind of, potluck lunch and everything. And the response was incredible. So you take a step and see what the response is, and then it's like, wow, okay, there's energy here. And then take another step and another step. And if you're building like if you've got a kind of idea like where you are going, sit down and think of the strategy. This is where the left brain comes in. If you really do know where you're going, think of it as a staircase. What's each step? What's the resources? What's the step you got to take? What choices do you have to make? How do you get it going? So then that's when the planning comes out. If you really do know where you're heading, like I want to go to Hollywood or something, I want to start being an actress, is what you did, then sit down and write down, well, what do I need to do? What are the steps to make that a reality? And then take the first step and then see what happens.
Beautiful.
If it doesn't quite work out, adjust.
That's exactly right. That's part of being on the frontier of when we really begin to start creating our own life. That's how it works. It's the nature of the creative process. So if you got to readjust and reevaluate, my partner here at the Akashic Academy, Nick, says to me, Emily, do you know how many times Apple restructured? Like, just because we're making shifts and changes in what we're doing, it means that we're growing. So recognize it as part of your growth process. Yeah. Take those steps, be brave, grab that inner that journey that we're moving towards. Learn from Joseph Campbell. We are on this mission together, right? Take those steps, be brave. The fastest way to create a beautiful life is to start noticing beauty all around you. All right.
Yeah. Stay inspired.
Yep, stay inspired.
And get support. Look for support everywhere, in the inner realms and in the outer world. There's support everywhere.
Everywhere. My friends, I'm setting an intention right now that you'll be on a date with your girl, and I'm going to bring my hubs, and we're going to.
She's over here.
She's over here. We're going to meet in a tea shop. We're going to sit and have some tea. I really look forward to that day when I sit in person with you and the people that you love in your life. I'm also really hoping that the next time we meet for an interview like this, you're going to have a hat and a whip and a leather vest on, Mr. Indiana Jones.
Right, where's my hat gone? Okay.
Exactly. Thank you so much. You are just one of my favorite people on the planet, and I feel really blessed to have gotten brave enough myself to reach out to you and say, hey, would you come on my show so long ago?
Thank you.
That was me really stepping into my courage, and this beautiful relationship has bloomed from it, and I just couldn't be more grateful to be somebody who is walking the same steps that you're walking in this lifetime. Thank you.
We're amigas together.
Yes, we are. By the way, where can they find you?
thesoulmatrix.com, and on YouTube, Steve Nobel. Just search, you'll find there's about 100 odd transmission meditations on there that you can listen to, and it's I hope it to be very helpful for people.
Yeah, you guys see me posting those all the time. I post in real time. When I'm getting ready to do one of those, I snap the picture, I show you what crystal that I've been drawn to use at that time, and I leave you the link there. So if you ever want to do Steve Nobel's meditation transmissions with me in real time, just follow the Akashic Academy Facebook page, because I'm definitely sharing that experience because it's so profound. Thank you, my friend. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you, Emily. You too.
We'll do this again.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.